The global migration crisis is at its peak in 2025. Millions are on the move, but are we closer to solutions or just facing the same struggles? In today's video, I'm breaking down the real human impact, the political tensions, and whether the world is finally ready to address this crisis head on. Imagine this. You wake up one day and everything you know is gone. War, famine, political unrest, it doesn't matter. You have to leave with no idea if you'll ever return. This is a reality for millions and millions of people in 2024, and it's gonna be the reality in 2025 as well. The global migration crisis is unlike anything we have seen before, and it's not just happening in one region, it's everywhere. From Central America to Africa to Europe, people are fleeing their homes, and the world is being forced to confront a humanitarian crisis of unprecedented scale. We have heard the promises from world leaders: more aid, better policies, safer routes, but are they just empty words? Is the global community finally coming up with solutions, and are we watching the same cycle of struggles play out again and again? Let's start with the real story, shall we? The human cost. We're not just talking numbers now, we're talking about people, families torn apart, children growing up in camps without education, people risking their lives just for the chance of safety. It's easy to get lost in the statistics, but every one of those numbers is a human being facing unimaginable challenge. One of the hardest truths about the global migration crisis is that many of the people fleeing don't want to leave. They love their homes, their countries, their cultures, but they are being forced out by factors beyond their control. War, climate change, corruption, and while the headline focuses on the politics, we can't forget that behind every crisis is a human face. Want the full story? It's more than just headlines. It's real lives being impacted. Subscribe to Unfiltered Reality, where we go beyond the news to uncover the real truths behind today's biggest global issues. Now, let's talk about the politics. Every year, where leaders come together promising solutions, more funding, better resources, safer pathways for migrants. But here's the truth. Promises are often broken. In 2025, we're still seeing the same political struggles that have plagued the migration crisis for years. Take Europe, for example. Countries are divided between welcoming refugees and tightening their borders. The US is seeing record number of migrants at its southern border, while nations in Africa and Middle East struggle to cope with the overflow. Meanwhile, political protests are rising, and immigration has become one of the most polarizing topics in global politics. While the political leaders talk, the people in need are left waiting. There's a huge gap between the promises made at summits and what actually happens on the ground. So the question is, are we really addressing the root causes, or are we just stuck in an endless cycle of broken promises? And while the global situation may be unstable, your financial future doesn't have to be. With stake, you can invest in the UAE real estate with just $550. Secure your future with smart, safe investment. Click the link below to start building a portfolio and profile that works for you. Thank you. There's another factor we can't ignore: climate change is the silent driver behind a huge portion of today's migration crisis. Natural disasters, rising sea levels, droughts is pushing people out of their homes at an alarming rate. In places like the Sub-Saharan Africa, Central America, and Southeast Asia, entire communities are being displaced because their land is no longer livable. And this isn't just a future problem, no, it's happening right now in 2024. And the worst is, by 2025, millions will have been displaced due to climate change, and that number is only going to go up. The world is facing a new kind of refugee, a climate refugee, and right now there's no global framework to deal with it. We are seeing a crisis unfold that we are not prepared for. So what's the solution? Are we making any real progress? Well, there are some positive developments. Countries are slowly starting to address the root causes: poverty, political instability, and climate change. We are seeing more investment in infrastructure, education, and sustainable farming in regions that are most affected by migration. Technology is also playing a role. Digital IDs for refugees apps that help migrants find safe routes, and tech-driven solutions for resettlement. But the big question is, will it be enough? These solutions are promising, but they are not being scaled fast enough to keep up with the crisis. There are bright spots. Countries like Canada and Germany have implemented successful refugees resettlement programs, while international organizations are working hard to support the most vulnerable populations. But for every success story, there are countless people still stuck in limbo, waiting for the world to act. 2025 is going to be our turning point. The global migration crisis isn't going away, it's growing. And while we're seeing new solutions and some progress, the challenges are far from over. Are we really going to continue down this path of struggle? Or will the world finally come together to address the real issues at the heart of this crisis? Now, before we go, make sure to subscribe to Unfiltered Reality for more insights into the global issues that affect us all. We are diving deep into the topics that matter because these aren't just stories, they're the reality millions are living in. Thank you and